Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning?
Good morning.
I actually want to speak about how an audience reacts to the words good morning. That's a joke. But I hope you're as inspired as I am, being surrounded by people who are so passionate about sharing such important ideas. I have an idea this morning that I'd like to share with you. Let me start by telling you a story. This is a story about a psychologist that had a patient with a very strange problem. See, this young man was going through his life believing that he was dead. So the psychologist decided that reality therapy would be the best way to approach this. And so he said to the young man, I'd like you to go home, and every morning when you wake up, I would like you to sit on the edge of your bed and repeat 7 times, dead men don't bleed, dead men don't bleed, dead men don't bleed. And so he did. He went home, he'd go to bed, wake up in the morning, he'd sit on the edge of his bed, and he'd repeat those lines, dead men don't bleed, dead men don't bleed. He came back to see the doctor at the end of the week, and the doctor said to him, did you repeat the lines? And he said, yes, I did. And so the doctor went up to the bulletin board, he took a thumbtack, and he came over to the patient, and he poked him right in the finger. And sure enough, he began to bleed, and the blood dripped off his finger down onto the floor. And in amazement, he looked up at his doctor and said, oh my goodness, dead men do bleed. Now that's a funny story, but in every bit of humor, there's a morsel of truth. And the morsel of truth in that story is that, well, we're kind of like that young man sometimes. You see, during life we get stuck in these routines. We start doing the things over and over again. We start seeing the same things again and again. We start thinking the same way again and again. And sometimes those routines become ruts. Now they say a rut is the same as a grave. The only difference is its depth. So this morning I'd like to talk to you about breaking free from some of those ruts that we're in. One time I saw this poster and it said, a goal without a plan is just a dream. I figure I must be living the dream because there have been so many things that I've done in my life, and very rarely do I make plans. Let me give you a few examples. I love running. In high school, I ran 5-kilometer races and 10-kilometer races. And then 10 years ago, I heard about these very long races. They were called marathons, 42.2 kilometers. And I thought, okay, so that's like a 10-kilometer race 4 times, then 2 more kilometers and 2 more. I can do that. So I registered for the race. I showed up, and when the gun went, I put one foot in front of the other, and I kept on going until I crossed the finish line. And at the finish line, they gave me a medal for running this race. You see, very little planning, very little thought put into it. Just showing up and getting the job done. More recently, I thought it would be a really cool idea to sit down and write a book. So I did. I had an idea that I want to write a book about parenting, so I wrote, and I wrote, and I wrote, and I wrote, and I wrote. And then when I was done, I had a manuscript. I sent it off to a publisher, and the publisher published a book called Happy Parent, a novel about parenting teens. You see, not a lot of planning, just a lot of hard work. Let me give you another example. 24 years ago, my wife Kim and I decided we had a dream that we wanted to go live in a developing country. So we took all of our worldly possessions, put them into 4 duffel bags, and hopped on an airplane for West Africa. We lived in West Africa, we taught in schools, worked in orphanages, refugee camps, and when we were finished our time there, we hopped on a plane and came back home. Again, not a lot of planning, just getting up and going. I'll give you one more example. I had this crazy idea that I wanted to start my own high school. I wanted to have a school for marginalized young people. A school for kids that just didn't fit into the regular schools. And so I rented a room here in Montreal on Queen Mary Street. And I opened something called Education Plus. On the first day I met 2 boys, Billy and Blair. I said to them, hey guys, I just started a high school, you should come. Now Billy and Blair had just been expelled from their previous school. And so they showed up. By the end of the week, Chris had joined them. And then after that, Agatha joined them too. By the end of the year, I had so many students that I had to rent a new place, a much larger location. Somewhere along the line, I let the Ministry of Education in on our little secret, and they supplied us with a license. 19 years later, 19 years later, I still have the privilege of teaching students at the coolest little high school in Montreal. You see, not a lot of planning went into it. In fact, I really believe that planning can kill a dream. What happens to your plan when something gets in the way, you hit a road bump, and it alters the course of your dream? I think it was Mike Tyson that says, everybody's got a plan, and then you get punched in the face. And it was John Lennon that said, life is what happens when you're busy making plans. I think we get caught up in that. I think so often we're busy making plans and diagrams and ways of doing things and schedules that we forget about our dream. So I know what you're thinking. If you don't need planning, what do you need? I'm going to propose to you this morning 3 things that will help you realize your impossible dream. The first thing that I really think that you will need is resistance. You see, when I wanted to open a high school, I talked it up among my friends, and they said to me, James, you can't just start a school. Schools, well, they've always existed. They're kind of like churches or countries. They're just always there. You can't do it. And that is exactly what I needed. Somebody to tell me I couldn't do something. Remember a long time ago when we had this prime minister called Pierre Elliott Trudeau? And a reporter said to him, you can't do this, you can't do that. His response was, oh yeah? Just watch me. And he did it. The second thing that you'll need of resistance is the first thing you need is direction. Now this is one of the most important diagrams that I have ever been shown. In the center is the dream. And around it there are a variety of people with different proximities to the dream. And one thing I have found is that it doesn't really matter how close you are to your dream, but it matters the direction in which you're moving. Look at this person over here. Very close to their dream, yet moving in the wrong direction. This is the athlete who should be playing in the NFL, but has found out that partying is a lot easier than training. And so he's traded in his gym pass for his case of beer and some good times. This is a student who's coming to the end of her degree, but because of the fear of failure, doesn't show up for her final exams. Very close to the dream, but moving in the wrong direction. Now, I'd much rather be this other person over here. This person much further away from their dream, yet moving in the right direction. This is the 48-year-old woman who realized that she is quite smart, and that she's valuable, and decides to return to university to complete a degree. This is the teenage girl who has an obvious aptitude for sciences, but decides to follow her heart and go into a career in creative arts. Or this is the young man who thinks he wants to be a doctor, but he's not quite sure. And so he volunteers at the local hospital so he can test the waters. Further away from their dream, but yet moving in the right direction. So the first thing that you need is resistance, and the second thing that you need is the direction. The third thing that you're going to need is a sense that you're making an impact. Nothing will kill a dream more than a sense that no matter what you do, you're not going to make any difference at all. Now, I've talked a lot about impacting other people's lives, but this does not preclude an idea of working with environmental issues, saving our planet, looking after wildlife, looking at endangered species, because in doing so, you will also improve the life of everybody on the planet. It also does not cut out the idea of a personal endeavor, perhaps an idea of climbing Mount Everest or swimming from Cuba to Florida. Think about the impact that Chris Hadfield has had on all of us with his 5 months in the International Space Station. Think about what he's been able to do and inspire other people to follow in his footsteps. But one thing that I have found for sure is that when you take the time and the energy to involve yourself in making an impact in other people's lives, when you have decided that you are going to work at improving other people's lives, you will never be disappointed. Some of my dreams have taken me to places like Haiti, where I've been privileged to work in an orphanage. My continuing dream is every day I get to work in a school right here in Montreal, where I can teach leadership quality young people. But those are my dreams. So I need to ask you this morning, what is your dream? Thank you.